the most amazing sauté asparagus served with an asparagus puree and a poached egg. But not any poached egg, trust me. This poached egg is poached in red wine. The secret behind this dish is in that richness from the yolk, but more importantly, how I cook the asparagus. "99 times out of 100, you'll see asparagus steamed or boiled. What happens when they're boiled or steamed? All the flavor goes out of them. So what I'm doing, I'm keeping the skins on. Why? Because the flavor is in that skin. Now, each asparagus tip has a woody part. That bit there is the bit that sticks in the ground, so you can't eat that. So it's called feeling for the asparagus. You run the knife down, and the minute it's soft, beautiful. That's what you want there, that beautiful, nice, round tip there. So last, you basically take off about 2 inches of the asparagus. Don't throw them away. They're great for stocks. And they hold an amazing flavor, but we cannot cook with them. So line the asparagus up, come up 2 inches, and slice through. And you should feel a nice, smooth cut on the asparagus. There's something quite magical about eating asparagus for literally 3 months a year. It's highly seasonal, but the flavor is extraordinary. And these is what I call the magic asparagus, white asparagus. The flavor is a lot sweeter than normal asparagus. You'll see when we blister these, it's almost like this soft, creamy texture inside. They're only in season for 6 or 7 weeks max. Again, the base of that asparagus is very woody. Take that off. The flavor from the bases, trust me, goes brilliantly well, especially when you're making a vegetable stock. And the vegetable stock, you know, is a great base to any fantastic soup. So don't throw them away. They freeze brilliantly. Take off all those little woody parts. Now, for the puree. I'm not gonna waste the tip of the asparagus because that's the sweetest part. I'm gonna take about 1 centimeter off each asparagus and slice them. And that's gonna start the base of my puree. So hold the asparagus together and let the knife do the work and literally lift up and down. And all I'm doing now is trimming the asparagus. So you can see why. You can see why I'm not wasting any of it. Let the knife do the work, pierce them together, and just, again, that up and down motion. And all I'm doing now is sizing up my asparagus for the plate, thinking about the presentation as we go. And also, there's nothing worse when you're on a lunch or dinner and you're trying to negotiate a big, long spear of asparagus. The flavor of these parts, I call it the middle sector of the asparagus, is incredible. And look, all we've done now is literally trimmed our asparagus, ready for cooking. First off, the puree. Now, the secret behind an asparagus puree, for me, is in the actual sweating of the asparagus. Stove on, a little knob of butter, tiny bit of butter. The secret now is gently sweating off that asparagus. You can see it's almost like it's sort of shredded, but the flavor in here. Any other chef would be peeling their asparagus. What do they do with their peel? They throw the peel away. This makes an amazing puree. Now, sweat that butter. In there, a teaspoon of shallots. Why shallots over onions? A lot sweeter, a lot finer, and I've got a lot more control over the acidity. A white onion, very, very sharp. I like that nice sweet contrast to the asparagus, but more importantly, I don't want anything overpowering. Lightly sweat off the shallots and garlic with no color. Really important, no color. This puree for me needs to be dark, vibrant, and really nice and green. So if I put any color on the shallots or garlic, it disturbs the color of my asparagus. Asparagus in, and we sweat them off now. Beautifully down. Now this is a great sort of way of not just no waste, but more importantly, an amazing way to experience the flavor of great asparagus. Lightly seasoned, such as salt, and a touch of pepper. From there, I'll take some of this this is beautifully homegrown thyme, but it's a lemon thyme, so it gives that nice sort of lift and sort of magic to the asparagus puree. Just pick a couple of little buds of thyme and into the asparagus. That's going to make that asparagus puree nice and fragrant. And like I said, this puree goes beautifully with this dish, but for me, it's also the base of a great soup. So how would I make my asparagus soup? Sweat down all my trimmings, make a stock from the butts of the asparagus, and then add the stock to the puree. You've got this pure, magical, amazing asparagus soup. Incredibly healthy. It's got that richness to it as well. Very sweet and very delicious. Now, sweat down the asparagus. No color, really important, because I don't want an over sort of bitter flavor in the asparagus. Once I've sweated that down, you can see the asparagus starts to break down. And as it starts to melt, that smell, that sort of nice, sweet, braised flavors coming out. Now, here's the secret. If you keep that nice and flat in the pan, it cooks evenly. Red wine for poaching the eggs, brought up to the boil. I'm gonna leave that off and just let that simmer, and I'll show you why in a minute. Sweat off that asparagus. Lightly seasoning. I've got the thyme, lemon thyme in there. It's gonna make it a little bit more fragrant. A little touch of salt, a little touch of pepper, and shallots and garlic. But look, it's starting to break down because I've sliced them super thin. No color, but just sweating them down. It's really important. It sounds a little bit bizarre, but you can overcook a puree. Everyone thinks, overcook it to get it nice and fine. No, there's a moment where you have to stop cooking it. And look, the asparagus has just started to break down, and now it's time for the vegetable stock. So, clean the outside of the pan, bring all those little bits down, and then add your vegetable stock. Now, don't flood the pan. Stock goes in, and you just want to cover the top of the asparagus, okay? Because I want a puree, I want a nice, dense, rich puree. And this puree of asparagus, for me, is almost like, I call it like an asparagus butter. It's like this magical moment that you think, wow, the asparagus tastes great, but the puree is exceptional. Bring that up to the boil, turn that down, and let it simmer. And I say simmer because I want it cooking gently. If it cooks too fast, then it explodes the little bits of asparagus and makes the puree very watery. So turn it down, right down to 0, put the lid on, and just let that cook away for 2.5 minutes max. Now, look, the stock has absorbed into that asparagus. This puree literally cooks out in minutes. And the secret there is slicing the asparagus super thin. We've got the added bonus of having those white asparagus bases in there as well. And it's cooked because you can sort of get it and sort of nip it in between your fingers. You can see it's soft. No crunch, just a beautiful, soft. I've got that color still, so I don't want to overcook this puree. Turn the heat up and put the cream in. And that's gonna finish this puree beautifully. Cream in, a couple of tablespoons of cream. And before I blitz it, it's really important that you bring that back up to the boil. If I bring it back up to the boil, it stops it from breaking. If I put cold cream into there and don't cook it out, it will break by the time I blend it. So back up to the boil and literally cook that cream out. But here's the important part. Before I blitz it, I want you to taste it. Touch more salt. Touch more pepper. It's very hard to season the puree once it's been blended because it doesn't take the seasoning. It makes it rough and grainy. So do it all in here. It's back up to the boil now. That is ready. Into the blender. The most important thing about a puree is blending it once it's piping hot. If you let this sit and it goes cold, you'll never get that fine, beautiful puree. And it's with a lot of vegetables exactly the same way. I've sweated it off beautifully. I've seasoned it perfectly. And now it's ready for blending. On. And start off gently, really important. If we blitz it too fast, too quickly, then the whole thing just explodes. I want to keep all the magic here at the base. Turn it on. Let that blend gently. And because it's piping hot, it's gonna go nice and smooth. And then, look, you can just see at the base of the blender, it's starting to go super fine. And then increase the power. I don't want to lose half of it splattered all around. Keep it nice and controlled. I mean, that is delicious. One taste. Now, look at that. Beautiful. Right now, I'm like a pig in shit because that is just perfect. And that's just one little part of this dish. This puree is sweet, it's refined, but it's earthy. It's got that wonderful, nice, fresh asparagus taste. And the most important thing about this puree is it's been cooked super quick, so I've got all that healthy nutrient of the asparagus kept in that puree. Now, put that into a squeezy bottle. Now, the most exciting part, cooking the asparagus. Again, season. I want the seasoning a little bit heavier this time. Open at the top of your pepper mill. That'll increase the size of your peppercorns underneath. And it's a robust seasoning. I season like this when I'm seasoning steaks, ribeyes, New York strips. I've got that nice cracked pepper. A touch of salt and roll the asparagus round in that seasoning. Now, here, I have some lemon salt as well. I want a little bit of acidity to that asparagus. So lemon salt, pepper, and think of that black pepper and that lemon. Beautiful. Now for the cooking. For me, the most exciting part. Pan on. Whilst I'm waiting for the pan to get nice and hot, let me talk to you about the mushrooms. This dish is all about the level of simplicity. And for me, these king trumpet mushrooms, the flavor is incredible. I call it the sort of cheap porcini. Slice them in half, and then just nicely with your tip of your knife, just crisscross. When you do this, just lightly score it, it helps to open up the pores of the mushrooms. You'll see as the mushroom cooks, it doesn't become spongy in the center. And for me, I get that amazing flavor of olive oil inside that mushroom. So just crisscross, nice and gently. Now, my pan is smoking hot. Normally, asparagus is boiled. I'm blistering the asparagus, pan piping hot. Turn the gas down. A touch of olive oil in there, just a touch. And what I want to do now is almost blister the outside of the asparagus. And the flavor that gives it is incredible. Pan nice and hot. Asparagus over. And lay the asparagus in. Not literally covering them with oil. Get that seasoning in there as well. Now, honestly, once you've tasted asparagus like this, you'll never ever want to go back to boiled asparagus, let me tell you. Skin's on, gas nice and high. When you leave the skin on the asparagus, it protects it so it doesn't overcook it. Look what happens. It starts to blister the outside of the asparagus. It's almost like you're sticking asparagus on the barbecue. I'm starving them of water. I don't want water to go anywhere near there because I want to keep that flavor, that high intensity flavor, that nice, clean, beautiful sweetness of asparagus. Turn them over, roll them round. And this is called basically putting color on the asparagus. So good, so nice. It's like that nice, light barbecue flavor. It's almost like a sort of charcoal. You can smell how sweet the asparagus is, and it's got nowhere near water yet, so the flavor is intensifying. A touch of butter in there. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Look at that asparagus now. Look what's happening to it. And this is the secret of working with a cast iron pan, because it retains the heat, but it also gives that amazing flavor on top of the asparagus. Gas down, and then from there, literally, I'm gonna pour in a tablespoon of stock. And this is the vegetable stock, okay? So this whole thing stays nice and clean. And as the stock gets in there, it'll absorb and glaze the asparagus now. They're not cooked, but the stock helps to steam the asparagus. Watch what happens. Stock goes in. Beautiful. Take some tin foil and literally just sit that on top. Take it off and leave it on the side. Now all that heat in that cast iron pan just continues cooking that asparagus so slowly, and it'll be soft and crispy on the outside. Mushrooms next. Again, beautifully seasoned. So much easier to season, as you cook rather than trying to season things at the end. I like the seasoning to lift up the ingredients, and so I'm a big believer in small amounts of seasoning across all the cooking. Mushrooms in, touch of olive oil. As you see, we've opened up those mushrooms, and we lay that side, presentation, down. Always lay away from you so there's no splashback. You'll never get oil up your arm. Lay away. These mushrooms are sort of almost sauteed. Beautiful. Now get colour on those mushrooms. I don't want you to turn them. Sometimes, when you saute mushrooms, the most important thing is taking that water out. So high intensity of the heat, but don't turn them too often, especially a mushroom this big. From there, a little bit of thyme in with the mushrooms. Take a little clove of garlic, just lightly crush that. In, back of the knife. I don't want chopped garlic in there because it will burn. I want a flavour of that garlic in there. As that oil starts to absorb, just a little touch inside again. And then we're going to start turning them. Now, let's see. Beautiful. Oh my Lord. They look and smell incredible. Beautiful. Amazing. You've got that nice toasted garlic flavour. It's got that wonderful fragrance from that thyme. And I like being generous with the thyme. That just takes mushrooms to a completely different level. Now, beautifully coloured. Drain them. That way we don't get any sort of excess oil on the plate. Take them out. Flavour from these mushrooms, beautiful. I mean, really beautiful. I've got the nice little thyme flowers on. They're beautifully coloured. And the secret behind these is that I've taken all the water out, so the flavour is just pure mushroom. Beautiful. Out of the pan. Look at that. Amazing. Great. Poaching an egg, we've all done. Nice, beautiful, but poaching it in red wine just gives it that nice silky tannin, and it turns that egg white into something even more tastier. Don't use an expensive wine. House wine is fine. Bring it up to the boil. Lightly season it. Touch of salt, touch of pepper, and then a nice bay leaf. Get a couple of cloves of garlic and just lightly, and I mean lightly, crush the garlic. Now, the nice thing about this red wine is you can use time and time again. And every time you use it, the eggs just get richer and richer and richer. Bring it up to the boil. We're going to spin the red wine round and drop the egg into it. And that's going to be the final coat of that asparagus. Think about the 70s, the 80s, asparagus, hollandaise sauce, wild mushrooms. This just takes it to a different level. So a poached egg gives it that richness, and it's that final royal coating across that asparagus that just takes this dish to zenith. Slotted spoon crucial because we go in there without denting the egg and lift out that egg. Whisk, red wine up to the boil, create that vortex. Basically, we're spinning the red wine round. And what happens is I crack the egg and the egg goes in, all that beautiful egg white wraps around the yolk. But it beautifully sort of stains the outside with this nice, dark, beautiful red color. Look for a nice, large egg, okay? And also with the eggs, you know, I prefer cooking them at room temperature. Cooking them straight from the fridge, you know, makes that yolk so much more denser, so be careful. Always crack on a flat surface, open, and crack into a little bowl first. That protects your egg yolk. Again, vortex, whisk in one hand, egg in the other. Bring that up to temperature and drop that in. And you'll see that spinning around gently. Now, and the nice thing about this red wine, once you poached eggs in here, trust me, pass it through a sieve, chill it down, and use it again. Incredible. Back on the heat. Gently. Now, they take about 90 seconds to poach, so I'm taking it on and off the heat. It's got that vortex still running. Sometimes when you put it back on the heat, it starts to boil it rapidly, so I don't want that bursting. So you just go on, bring up the momentum, back off. And that helps to cook the egg evenly. If I had to leave it on the stove, if that red wine boils, it could burst the egg, and that magical moment has gone. Now, check the egg gently. There she blows. Beautiful. And just spinning that round. Literally 90 seconds. Bring that temperature back up. Don't boil it rapidly. And you'll see the color. There's beautiful. Almost like a ruby diamond. Amazing. Now, to take the egg out, tray with a little piece of paper to drain, tilt the pan, and gently put the spoon underneath the egg and lift out. And now's the chance to get rid of any excess egg. Sometimes got those little unwanted bits out onto the paper and drain that egg. Beautiful. Now, lightly, and I mean lightly, season that with a little touch of that lemon, citrus, salt, twist, black pepper. And now we start to plate. Now for the magical part. Asparagus, literally in the center of the plate, and we'll alternate, and we'll go white, green, white, and green. And what I'm trying to do now is group the asparagus into the center of the plate. And I want those alternative colors. Then I start building this thing out with a bit of height, a bit of beauty. Again, crisscross. And they're so beautifully cooked. You can see now why the asparagus has been trimmed down for obvious reasons. Build that asparagus up. Each and every spear has that amazing color. From there, my mushrooms. I want the mushrooms on the plate sort of almost just sort of like they've just been plucked fresh from the garden. The color on these trompettes is incredible. And now for the richness, that beautiful, clean, fresh asparagus puree. It's almost like asparagus butter. They go round in generous portions. And this is the sort of the silk, almost like the final gloss. Be generous with that puree. And the secret now is to spread that puree on the asparagus. Lightly season with that lemon salt. gently over. And then very carefully lift up your beautiful egg and sit that, crown the asparagus. And that's the surprise. And there we go, a beautiful sauteed asparagus with a delicious, rich asparagus puree, sauteed mushrooms, and a poached egg in red wine. That is asparagus in heaven.